I'm just sorting recording out here because there was recording and then it stopped and I've just put it back on. All right. Okay, ladies and gents, we looked at the rules for intestate law. Now let's try and practice on our own. Let's take a scenario. Okay, now I want you all to write down the scenario with me. I'll write it down with you to make sure we're all going at the same time. Okay, the scenario reads like this. Okay, X dies intestate. Obviously meaning without a will or a valid will. X dies intestate and leaves an estate of 800,000 Rand. Leaves an estate of 800,000 Rand. That is what X is worth upon being deceased. All right. X is married to Y. So X married to Y in community of property. All right. So X is married to Y in community of property. X leaves behind the following people. X leaves behind the following people. Number one, X leaves behind Y. That's the spouse that he or she is married in community of property to. Number two, X leaves behind 3 children. 3 children. We're going to call these 3 children C1, C2, and C3. So he leaves behind 3 children, C1, C2, and C3. Right. Number 3, the third thing. C1 has 2 children. C1 has 2 children. We're going to call those 2 children GC1 and GC2. GC standing for grandchildren. Hey? Obviously, if your child has children, it's your grandchildren. So C1 has 2 children, GC1 and GC2. I will repeat the question again afterwards in case we miss anything. The fourth thing, C2 has 1 child. So child 2 has 1 child. We're going to call that child GC3. Okay. C2 has 1 child. We're going to call that child GC3. Okay. Fifth thing, we're going to say C1 is predeceased. C1 is predeceased. The sixth thing we're going to say is C2 repudiates his or her claim or inheritance. So C2 repudiates his or her inheritance. Okay, so let's look at our question. We said X dies intestate, has an estate worth of 800,000 Rand. X is married to Y in community of property. X leaves behind the following people. He leaves behind Y. Secondly, he leaves behind 3 children, C1, C2, and C3. Thirdly, we said C1 has 2 children. We called those 2 children GC1 and GC2. Fourthly, we said C2, so child 2, has 1 child. We called that child GC3. And then fifthly, we said C1 is predeceased. And sixthly, we said C2 repudiates his inheritance. All right. So that is the scenario. Ladies and gents, if I gave you more things and I said he also leaves behind an uncle, aunt, a mother, a father, 3 brothers, we should all know, I'm just saying that to confuse all of you. Because the moment you see a spouse or children, we know we're firmly on rule 1. All right. Ladies and gents, is there anyone who did not catch that question? Seems like we. Yes.
Yes, we didn't.
Okay, so you forget about C3.
C3 is fine. I've not said anything about C3.
Okay.
You have 3 children, C1, C2, and C3. C3 obviously didn't have any children. Otherwise, that would have been part of the question then, hey? Because the 2 grandchildren came from C1. There was a 3rd grandchild that came from C2. And we have C1 who is predeceased and C2 who repudiates
Hi, Kyle.
his or her claim.
Sorry, I've copied and pasted the question into the chat box in case anyone who didn't
Fantastic.
get it needs it.
Thank you very much. You all heard that? If in case you missed something, the question has been put into the chat box. Ladies and gents,
Andile, can I try to answer the question?
I'm going to give all of you now a bit of time to try this question individually. All right. It's now 6:52. I'm going to give you till 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we'll have a look at the answer, but please try it on your own. It's okay if we make mistakes. Let's just try it on our own. This will test to see if we understand what's going on. All right. You have some time.
Answer the question when we come back.
I will be answering the question, yes.
No, can I try to answer it?
You must try on your own, individually.
No, I mean like when we come back, can I try to give the answer? To see if
I don't mind. I don't mind. You can.
Okay.
Ladies and gents, please remember to mute your mics.
think I'm done. Hello. I think I'm done.
Okay, ladies and gents, it is now 7 o'clock.
Guys, where's the lecturer?
Yes.
Please keep
I think
your,
I'm done.
Okay, please keep your
Ella,
mics
please mute
muted.
yourself.
Ladies and gents, everyone keep your mics muted. Thank you. All right, ladies and gents, before I break down and go through the answer with you, there was one individual who wanted to try it on their own. So I'll give that person a chance to give the answers. You can proceed.
Since Ms. X estate was 500,000 and married a community of property, the first way to dissolve his estate is to take 400,000 to his spouse, which now he'll be left with 400,000 to be shared amongst the descendants. But before we share the 400,000 amongst the descendants, we'll need to give the spouse a child's share, of which now the spouse will inherit 650K, and then 150K will be shared amongst C1, C2, C3. By representation, since C1 has been predeceased and has grandchildren as children GC1 and GC2, they will share the 50K amongst amongst them through representation, and then the 50K of C2, which is C2 repudiating, it will go to it will go to GC3.
And C3? You seem to have lost him.
Kyle?
Well,
Kyle?
yes.
Yeah, if C2 repudiates, isn't it supposed to go to the surviving spouse?
I'm going to have the answer now. I just wanted to hear the gentleman's answer.
Oh, okay.
So, yes.
Can I
So,
summarize the answers then?
ladies and gents, just make sure we mute it. I think it's going to be easier that way. Let me go through it with you. All right. The gentleman got most of it correct. There was just the slip up with C2, and then he didn't mention anything about C3. But everything up to there worked perfectly. I mean, first things first, if I received a question like this in the exam, just make sure we mute it, ladies and gents. If I received a question like this in the exam, the first thing I would do is I would do my diagram. Okay? So I would have drawn X. Next to X, I would have put Y. Under X, I would have put We're getting a lot of interruption from mics that are unmuted.
Please, guys.
All it takes is one unmuted mic and then we can't hear each other. Please make sure we mute it. Thank you very much. It sounds better now. Okay. Underneath X, I would have drawn C1, C2, and C3. Underneath C1, I would have drawn GC1 and GC2. Underneath C2, I would have drawn GC3. Okay. It just makes it easier when looking at the diagram how to answer the question. And we're not going to get confused. We're not going to miss anything. All right. So first things first, there was a marriage. The gentleman quite correctly gave 400,000 Rand to his wife. Why? And the reasons for that was because of the marriage in community of property. 100%. We now had 400,000 Rand left. That 400,000 Rand had to be divided amongst the wife, the spouse, and the children. We had wife Y and we had 3 children, C1, C2, C3. 400,000 divided by 4 is 100,000 each. That's a problem, obviously, because we know that the wife must get the greater of an equal share, which is 100,000 in this scenario, or 250. Right. So what we do is we go and give the wife another 250,000 rand because it's greater than the equal share. Hey, so wife is now sitting with a 400,000 rand from the marriage. We're done with that. And then the wife, Y, received another 250,000 rand because of rule 1. What is now left in the estate? 150,000 rand is left. Okay. This is to be divided among C1, C2, and C3. Okay. So it's 50,000 rand each, technically speaking. Now let's look at the scenario. C1 is predeceased. Okay. So C1 can't take the inheritance, but we know the inheritance is then going to go per stirps. So GC1 and GC2 are the children of C1. They can then go and step into C1's place, meaning 25K for GC1 and 25K for GC2. All right. Grandchildren came in and took C1's place per representation, per stirps. All right. Let's go to C2 now. C2 repudiated the claim. What we spoke about earlier, if someone repudiates,
Hi, Kyle. Are you still there?
I think we have lost him.
Yeah, I think we've lost Kyle.
Yeah, it's just frozen.
All of us are muted at all times, please. There are kids in other people's surroundings. Please, can we mute until such time that we get a chance to open and let our class.
Yeah, but it's long that you've been asking people to mute.
No,
And we are tempted now
please.
to tell them that their children are not more equal than ours. We also have children.
Yeah, like we can't keep on continuing
Really?
telling people to mute because it gets in between us being able to learn. So I don't know why we have to keep on repeating for people to mute. It's
Forever
unfair.
and ever. Thank you.
Will the wife get 700,000 rand?
Yes.
Guys, I'm back. I think the wife will end up inheriting 700,000 in total. We can keep discussing. Maybe I could disagree.
Guys, the muting. Someone is not muting, and is the background noise, please.
Manuel, please. Manuel, please mute.
Tembisa and Emmanuel, Hilda, please, guys. Shine on.
Can we continue with the discussion, guys? Just to finalize the answer.
Ladies and gents, I'm back. My sincere apologies. I have no idea. I just lost connection there, but I've managed to sort it. Apologies for that again. All right. Let's get back to where we're at. We're at C2. All right. So C2 is 50,000 rand. We said C2 repudiated the claim and it went to the surviving spouse Y. So Y received that 50,000 rand. So looking at it in total, Y received 400,000 rand from the marriage. and then 250 because of Rule 1, and then an additional 50,000 because of C2's repudiation. The only child left is C3, and C3 received the other 50K. There was no issues with C3. No one predeceased, no one repudiated, no issues like that whatsoever. So in a nutshell, your answer should read, why receive 400,000 because of the marriage and community of property? When that was done, we had 400,000 Rand left. That had to be divided amongst Y and the 3 children, C1, C2, C3. When we divided it equally, we realized equal shares was less than 250,000 Rand. This we gave Y an additional 250,000 Rand. The 150,000 Rand that was left, we had to divide amongst the 3 children, C1, C2, C3. C1, unfortunately, was predeceased, but per Sturps then kicks in for if someone's predeceased, and C1's 2 children, GC1 and GC2, could represent C1, which gave them 25,000 Rand each. C2, on the other hand, repudiated. The law is clear. If you repudiate, it goes to surviving spouse. Thus, Y received the C2's 50,000 Rand. C3, on the other hand, there was no issues. C3 took his or her cut of 50,000 Rand. Okay, ladies and gents, that's the answer to it at the end of the day. As you can see from looking at the answers, we didn't deviate at all from our principles. I mean, this is probably as complicated as it can get in terms of asking you an exam question on interstate law, where I'm focusing on Rule 1. You know, looking at the rules, you could see Rule 1 and Rule 3 is the most challenging rules. So one could assume that would probably be an area they would like to focus on. But this is how it goes. We followed our rules, we did our diagram, we sorted the marriage out, we applied Rule 1, strict rule of the greater of, or the 250,000 Rand rule. Thereafter, the only curveballs they tried to throw was if someone's predeceased or someone repudiated. We know the rule. Predeceased, per Sturps. Repudiate, back to surviving spouse. If I said C1 murdered X, the deceased person, we know that GC1 and GC2 would have inherited anyways, because when someone murders, it goes per Sturps as well. All right. Is there anyone that did not catch my answer or doesn't understand something about the answer? You may ask now. Okay. It appears we got it and we are happy. All right. Let's have a look at another scenario. Said we're going to do about 2 different examples that I need us to be happy with. Right. So let's do another scenario, another interstate question. The question reads as follows. Please, ladies and gents, again, let us write it down. X dies intestate. The estate is worth, let's go 600,000 Rand now. Okay, so X dies intestate. The estate is worth 600,000 Rand. Before I continue, can I just ask the individual who assisted now and put the question on the group, please, can we just do this again? It just helps to make sure that everyone's got the question. Okay. So we have a estate worth 600,000 Rand. X leaves behind the following people. X leaves behind the following people. Okay. Number 1, his father. Father, we are going to call F. So he leaves behind his father, F. Number 2, his 3 sisters. His 3 sisters. We're going to call the 3 sisters S1, S2, and S3. So he leaves behind his father, F, and his 3 sisters, S1, S2, S3. Okay. Number 3, the third aspect to this question. He also leaves behind 3 half brothers. 3 half brothers from his mother's side. Now remember, ladies and gents, 3 half brothers from his mother's side. From what we can see so far in the question, it's clear that his mother is no longer alive. His mother must be predeceased because he's only left his father behind. So he leaves behind 3 half brothers from his mother's side. We're going to call those 3 half brothers HB1, HB2, and then obviously HB3. Half brother 1, half brother 2, half brother 3. Okay. One more aspect to the question. He also leaves behind 2 half sisters from his father's side. So he leaves behind 2 half sisters from his father's side. We're going to call that HS1 and HS2. So half sister 1 and half sister 2. My apologies, there's one more aspect to the question as well. He also leaves behind 1 step brother from his no, the question just reads 1 step brother. So he leaves behind 1 step brother. We're going to call step brother SB. SB for step brother. Let me repeat the question, ladies and gents. X dies intestate. He has an estate worth 600,000 rand. X leaves behind the following. His father X. Number 2. I'm just reading on the group if they've said the question correctly. X dies intestate. His estate worth 600,000 rand. X leaves behind the following people. His father F. His 3 sisters S1, S2, and S3. 3 half brothers from his mother's side. HB1, HB2, HB3. 2 half sisters from his father's side. HS1, HS2, and 1 step brother SB. The question as put up on the group chat is 100% correct. Please look at the question. I'll then give you time again to answer it. It's now 7:18. We'll also run it around 8 minutes or so. That should be sufficient. Please, on your own individually, once again, when we're done, we'll look at the answer. You all can get cracking on that.
Hello, sorry. Can I ask a question before he comes back? Oh, sorry. We can continue.
Sorry, ma'am. I'll give you a chance now to ask questions, so you can ask it directly to me now. What is your name, ma'am?
My name is Dorothy.
All right, Dorothy, you can be the first one to ask the question now.
All right.
Okay, if the question is still applicable. Okay, so let's have a look at the scenario. X had died of 600,000 and left behind the following people. So if we drew it, we had X. Above X, we had father. Ladies and gents, I always just draw mother, even if mother doesn't exist. And I just put a line through mother. The reason why I do that is we know that this is on rule 3, but rule 3 inherits through rule 2. So we know father technically should receive 300,000 Rand and mother should receive 300,000 Rand. That's what the rule says. Okay, but I've got a line through mother because I know mother's not going to be able to take it. Okay, and we said there's 3 sisters, S1, S2, and S3. They obviously drawn in line with X. Then we have 3 half brothers from his mother's side. So I put, where I put my mother, I put the 3 half brothers, HB1, HB2, HB3. But they are now on the same line as the sisters because we're all on collaterals at the moment. Then we also had 2 half sisters from his father's side, HS1 and HS2. And then the fifth rule, or the fifth thing, is that it says we have 1 step brother SB. You could have drawn SB, but I'm not even going to draw SB because it's a step brother. We know a step brother or step sister has no blood relation to the deceased person. So they're not even going to form part of the family tree because there's no blood connection. Okay. First things first. If the father is alive, we know F must receive half the money, 300,000 Rand. Okay. Done and dusted. The mother is the issue. The mother is predeceased. So this is where rule 2 comes in. Rule 3. Rule 3, the collaterals must inherit through the deceased parents. So now we have a deceased mother. Okay. Who is blood related to the mother? We have S1, S1, S2, and S3. They're fully related. We had HB1, HB2, and HB3, the 3 half brothers from the mother's side. They're obviously blood related. We also had 2 half sisters from the father's side, HS1 and HS2. Now, HS1 and HS2 can't inherit through the mother because there's no blood relation to the mother. Eh? They could only inherit if the father was predeceased. So we're sitting with S1, S2, S3, and then the 3 half brothers. Now, we know the 3 half brothers count as 1 person. So we're sitting with 4 people, S1, S2, S3, and then the 4th person being the 3 half brothers. They must share in the 300,000 Rand. Thus, it's 300,000 Rand divided by 4. 300,000 divided by 4 is 75,000 each. So it's 75K to S1, 75K to S2, and 75K to S3. Now, HB1, HB2, and HB3, they must share in the 75K. So they will receive 25,000 each because they count as 1, and this they must share in the 75,000 Rand. So your answer should have been the father receives 300,000 Rand half. The other half, the other 300,000 Rand was for the mother. But the mother is not there. The person did not leave the mother behind. So the mother is obviously predeceased. Who can inherit through the mother? Only through blood. The 3 full sisters, obviously. And then the 3 half brothers were from the mother's side. The 2 half sisters from the father's side can't inherit. No relation to the mother. So we had S1, S2, and S3 getting 75,000 each. And then we had the 3 half brothers counting as 1 person. They shared the 75,000. Thus, they received 25,000 Rand each. Do I have any questions? Not in general, but any questions based on this specific example we just did? Okay.
Yes. I think
Dorothy?
yes, it's Dorothy.
Okay, go for it, Dorothy.
Yes, I think I'm covered because I wanted to. I was having a challenge as to how do I put the half brothers, the three half brothers from the mother. But you responded to cover my question when you said because of the blood relations, they are all going to be covered as one person. My worry was I was going to count them as 111. Then now, as they are counted one person, then it's okay for me.
Perfect. And tell me, you left the step brother and the two half sisters from the father's side out of your answer. Hey.
I guess I was still supposed to go there. I had written them under the father there, but then I was worried, how do they share? Because the father is also having his own 300,000. So I was still to go to the half brothers, the two half brothers. So I had not got a response yet.
Okay.
But
All
now
right.
I'm getting the most important people that we need to look at are the sisters that the deceased is having before we could go to these half brothers and or from both the parents' side.
Okay. Good
Yes.
stuff. Well, let's do it this way, ladies and gents, because I need to make sure that we understand this
Kyle.
nice.
Kyle?
Do I have a question?
Yes, I'm so sorry to interrupt. So are you saying that it doesn't matter how many children there are, we just regard them
Sorry,
as
ma'am.
one
I
person?
cannot hear a word you're saying. Someone's mic is unmuted. Try again now.
Okay, so are you saying that it doesn't really matter how many half siblings are there? You just regard all of them as one, even if there's 100 half brothers and sisters?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gents, let's do it the other way around.
Hello, Kyle.
Yes, there's another question on this one. Yes?
Yes. In our answer for the exam, do we need to narrate that the half sister, the two half sisters, and the step brother will not inherit? Do we need to state that, or must we just leave it out?
I would state that.
Okay.
So you'd have to look at the question. The question might read, who inherits? Okay. And then you
Okay.
would just say who inherits. But the question might read, you know, tell me who inherits, who doesn't inherit. You know, then you would have to say everything. But personally, no matter how the question read, I would write out who inherits, say how much they inherit, and when I'm done with it, I would say the following people don't inherit. And, you know, it's always good to give a reason. I mean, if there was a marriage, you'd say because of the marriage, the community of property. If the spouse received 250,000 Rand and not an equal share, then I would say because the spouse must receive the greater of an equal share or 250. You know, so to answer your question, mention everyone who does inherit and who doesn't inherit, and say why. You know, if it's an equal share or 250 or whatever the case may be.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That's clear.
Okay.
Hi, Kyle. Can I just ask?
Yes.
Hello. Yes, I
Yes,
wanted to ask, does this also apply to the parents that they automatically get a half of a share that's given by the deceased if that's the child? Because in this regard, it seems as if the father had to get 300,000 Rand. I thought the father would be getting maybe 250, then the siblings will share with the rest. I couldn't understand how the father got the 300,000. Please explain that to me.
Okay. Remember the 250,000 rule or equal share, whatever is greater, only applies to rule 1. That is when you have spouse and children involved. The moment there's no spouse or children of the deceased, we move away from that rule in its entirety. We move to rule 2. Rule 2 says your parents must then divide equally in the money. Now, we had 600,000 Rand. So it meant mother and father must receive 300,000 Rand each. So we gave father the 300,000 Rand, but we're unable to give mother the 300,000 Rand because mother is no longer living. Okay? Then rule 3 kicks in, which says, well, if one of the parents or both parents are unable to take their half share, then the collaterals, meaning the brothers and sisters or half brothers and half sisters of the deceased, can then come in and take their share. Like in this example, the mother's 300,000 Rand had to be taken by the collateral. So we had the 3 half sisters that were fully related. There was 3 people. And then we had the 3 half brothers from the mother's side that counted as one person that came in. The other people couldn't touch because there was no blood relation to the mother. Hey? So it was the 4 people who took the mother's share, and we divided it accordingly. So the 250 rule, only please use that when there's spouse and children involved and you're on rule 1. But the moment there's no spouse or children, the 250 rule falls away in its entirety, and we go look strictly at rule 2 and 3.
Completely understand. Thank you so much.
I'm glad.
Good evening.
Hello, Kyle.
Kyle.
Yes, can I get a name, ladies and gents, when you want to ask me a question?
Johan.
Okay, I got a Johan. Johan, you can go.
For exam purposes, I find it easier if I sketch the, basically make a sketch of how the situation is working. For instance, mother, father, the deceased, and all the children. Is it appropriate if we do use it in that sense for exams?
If you want to draw your sketch and then answer the question.
Yes, for instance, if I were to state, if we get the question, I start to draw the deceased, above him, the father and the mother and all the siblings and such stepbrothers and half brothers and stuff.
I recommend that you do that. Come exam time, I recommend when you get an interstate question, you draw your sketch, and then underneath it, you can start giving your answers. It's very difficult to just give your answers without looking at a sketch. You know, so that's no problem. It's actually recommended.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Kyle.
Hello.
I need a name, ladies and gents.
Dando speaking.
Okay, I got a Tando. We can
Yes.
go.
And a gift.
Thanks. Can you
after Tando, we'll listen to Gift. You can go
Okay.
first, Tando.
Thank you. Can you please elaborate on this part of father's side? Because I remember on my calculations, I calculated and got everything okay, 75, and then I realized that there are these 2 half brothers from father's side. Can you please elaborate why are they not inheriting? Because
Okay.
I've realized that I made a mistake and I decided to go back and count 5 instead of 4.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So the reason why they don't inherit is, remember now that rule 3 is the collaterals. They are inheriting through rule 2, who are the parents. And you need to inherit through blood. So if we have a look at the scenario, we have the sisters and the 3 half brothers that are blood related to the mother. Now, the father is alive. So the father can't share his inheritance. The father just received his 300,000 rand. If you have a look at the 2 half sisters from the father's side, HS1 and HS2, they could only inherit through the father. They couldn't inherit through the mother because they were not blood related to the mother. Hence, we had to leave them out of the question in its entirety, because the only inheritances came through the mom, which was the 3 sisters and then the 3 half brothers from the mother's side. Unfortunately, the half siblings or the half sisters from the father's side couldn't take through the mother because there was no blood relation over there.
Thank
So-
you. And then thanks. And then for exam purpose, should I carry? Okay.
Before you go again, I won't forget, Tando. I have you and I have Gift. I just want to just illustrate something for the class. Let's say we took this exact same question and we only changed one thing. We said the father is predeceased, but the mother is alive. So let's say that was the only thing that we ended up changing. Okay. Now look at the question. Now the mother would then receive 300,000 rand, right? Because the mother is now alive. Now look at the father. The father's 300,000 rand. He is predeceased. So we have to now look to rule 3. Who can take through the father? We know S1, S2, and S3. The 3 full sisters are related to the father. Now the 3 half brothers from the mother's side is not blood related to the father, so they can't take. But the 2 half sisters from the father's side, HS1 and HS2, you would agree is blood related to the father now. So now we have S1, S2, S3, which is 3 people. And we have the 2 half sisters, which count as 1 person. So that's the fourth person. And we would have had 75K to S1, 75K S2, 75K S3, and then the two half sisters would have shared in the 75K, which is something like 37,500 Rand each. Now, in such a scenario, you see by changing it what difference it makes. Now, if the father is predeceased, the sisters and the two half sisters from the father's side could inherit. Now the three half brothers from the mother's side misses out. So you just got to make sure when you bring the collaterals in that you're bringing them in and they're inheriting through blood from the respective parents. I hope that clarifies it a bit further for everyone as well. Tando, you were still busy asking me a question.
Thanks, it's more clearer now. And I wanted to ask that for exam purposes, should I further explain why S2 and HS1 do not inherit?
Yes, I would. I would say like for the first question, HS1 and HS2. When I'm done giving my answer, I would say HS1, HS2 do not inherit because they are not blood related to the mother.
Okay.
And I would say the step brother also does not inherit because they have no blood relation in any part of the family.
Oh, okay. I also wanted to further on and ask about the stepfather. Should I also write that why he doesn't inherit? Thanks a lot. It's clear.
Perfect. Thank you. Gift, I know you had a question for me.
Yes. For exam purposes, do we need to state in terms of which rule or which section is the division of the estates being made?
I do not believe so. You know what I would do if I was giving, let's say, for example, S1, S2, and S3 receive 75,000 Rand each.
Yes.
You know, you could just say that because of the laws of intestate succession. You know, if you wanted to, you could have said, you could have maybe mentioned the subsection, but I don't see that as entirely necessary. You know, if you have time to study it and put it in. But if you correctly said who must receive it, and you gave them the correct amount, and you said because of the laws of intestate succession, I don't see an issue with it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay. Richard. Ladies and gents, what I'm going to do now, okay, in terms of intestate law, we know the 5 rules, right? Child and spouse, the 250,000 rule. Second rule, parents individually, mother and father would then share in the estate if there's no children and spouse. Third rule, collaterals, brothers, sisters, half sisters, can come in and take from the respective parents if they are predeceased. Remember the word respective parents. Take from mother, take from father. Okay? Keep in mind, half brothers and half sisters count as one person. Fourth rule, if there is no one like that, nearest blood relative. Fifth rule, if there is no one like that, Guardians Fund, 30 years, if no one claims, forfeited to the state. Remember further, if you are predeceased, your inheritance can go per stirps, in other words, to your children. If you are disqualified from inheriting because you caused the death of a testator, same rule. It goes per stirps to your children. If you repudiate a claim, in other words, I do not want this inheritance, it goes to the surviving spouse. Ladies and gents, I just want to illustrate further. Let's stay on this question that we had now of the ex dies intestate with 600,000 and leaves behind his father. Let's say the question said he leaves. We take number 1 out in its entirety. Number 1 had his father F. Let's say both parents are predeceased. Okay. But the rest of the question remains the same. You agree it's still 300K to the father and 300K to the mother. But now the question is reading, they're both predeceased, so we can't give it. So now the descendants must come in and inherit through them. Hey. So let's start with the father. Who's related to the father? S1, S2, S3. And then we had the 2 half sisters from the father's side, HS1 and HS2. We actually looked already how that's going to work. It's going to work 75K for S1, 75 for S2, 75 for S3, and then we gave 37,500 to HS1 and HS2. Then we go over to the mother's side. Who can inherit through the mother? We know again S1, S2, S3. And then we had the 3 half brothers from the mother's side. HS1, HS2, HB1, HB2, and HB3. Again, we had 75,000 for S1, 75 for S2, 75 for S3, and then we gave 25,000 to HB1, 25,000 to HB2, and 25,000 to HB3. So S1, S2, and S3 took 75,000 from the mother and 75,000 from the father. So in total, they took 150,000 Rand each, where the 2 half sisters took 37,500 each because they split in the 75K from the father's side. The 3 half brothers from the mother's side, they took 25,000 Rand each because they counted as one and split the 75,000 between the 3 of them. So you see, if I told you one parent dies, either or if I told you both parents die, we still apply exactly the same rule. We divide the money between the 2 parents. We know they can't take it because they're predeceased. And then we start taking from the one parent. When we're done taking from them, we see who can take from the next parent. The rule gets so strictly applied as there's not even room for discretion. Outside of these rules, if you're putting something down in an exam that was not mentioned or part of these rules, then you must think I'm making a mistake because the rules get applied strictly. Okay, ladies and gents, as far as interstate law goes, that's what you need to know, okay? Remember one thing, ladies and gents, I can't teach you everything. If I wanted to teach you everything, I need a full semester with all of you individually, okay? Like university. What I can do is give you the basics so that whatever you go read in your book, you're able to read it and understand it, right? What I've given you here for me seems pretty much in line with what you could expect. But once again, that's my perspective. Perhaps they want to throw you with a couple extra scenarios, but you're able to now read your book, have a basic, understand what we're doing here, and then perhaps branch your knowledge out a bit further. I see we still have a bit of time, 5 to 10 minutes. What I will allow in this time period, what questions do we have? Maybe there was questions from earlier that I was unable to answer. Please say your name.
Samgelo, yeah.
Songelo, let's go.
Yeah, Samgelo. Hi, Carl. I just wanted to ask one question that is in relation to bloody hands don't inherit.
Yes.
Does that not depend on a scenario where it depends on the motive as to why you kill the person? Because if I'm killing my father because we had an argument and he dies, can I not inherit from him as opposed to me killing him because I wanted his inheritance? Or if, for instance, I kill my father because in self-defense as opposed to me killing him because I had an ulterior motive, will I then be precluded from inheriting?
Okay. So how it works is they refer to the blameworthy killer. Okay. So if I have an argument with my father and I kill him, I've murdered him. I'm a blameworthy killer. If I kill him to get inheritance, I've murdered him. I'm a blameworthy killer. But if I kill him out of self-defense, you would agree that in criminal law, self-defense is a legitimate defense to escape any criminal liability. Simply meaning then I would not be blameworthy if it was out of self-defense, and this I can inherit. So the question is, did I murder him? Yes or no? If I murdered him, I'm always blameworthy. Because if I killed him in his perspective where I'd acted out of self-defense, and I'm found by the court to having acted out of self-defense, then I have not murdered him. There is no murder charge against me. So the moment you hear the word murder, you know it's being murdered. But to branch out, we always look at the blameworthy killer. I hope that answers your question.
It
Maladi?
does, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up question.
Mohan?
Just a follow-up question.
Yes, I'm listening.
Yeah. What if it's a culpable homicide? Does it still preclude the party from inheriting?
Oh, that's a very difficult scenario, hey. because they look at the blameworthy killer.
Yes.
So, if I'm in an accident and you die, and you're sitting next to me, I could be charged with culpable homicide. But my
Yes.
question is, is it blameworthy? Was I driving drunk, for example? All those factors need to come into account. Hey, so usually what happens with scenarios like that is you end up being in a court case to actually determine if you are blameworthy or not. It's a very tricky scenario, and it's not something I could give you a definite answer of, because every case would be different to one another. So yeah, the question is, are you to blame for the person's death? Or obviously, if it's culpable homicide, you've got a role to play. But how blameworthy are you in this person's death? That's the question that also gets further asked. So yeah, it's a good question, because I'm not saying I can answer you straight away, but it's something that could be tested in court.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, hi, Peter, you okay?
I got
Thank you.
PK or something like that.
Oh yes. I needed to find out if one can legally reverse an adoption process. We earlier touched on, obviously, the example that you gave.
Yes, you could indeed legally do that. That can be done. There is processes that need to be followed, etc., etc. But yes, it can be done, most definitely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Richard, guys, Richard.
Rita, something like that. I got
Richard, yeah.
Richard, yes.
Yes, Kyle, my question is based on our last scenario here of X. Look here, Kyle, there's SB, there's SB here, who is, what do you call?
Stepbrother.
Come again?
The stepbrother.
Who is a stepbrother here? Whose child is this between ex-parents?
Well, there's the question. If someone's your stepbrother or stepsister, can they be a child of the parents? They can't be. How could someone have a stepbrother? It would happen if you were born from a marriage between your father and your mother, and then maybe they got divorced. Okay. And then your mother went and remarried another man. You agree that man would be your stepfather, eh? You agree with me?
I do.
Okay. So now she goes and marries this stepfather. But now this person, this stepfather, had children, other children, just like your mother has children, you. But your stepfather had other children from another marriage. Let's call that A and B. Or in this scenario, it was SB. Now, this stepfather of yours, children they had somewhere else, now becomes your stepbrother or your stepsister. All right. So you can see that there's no blood relation that you have with your stepfather. There's no blood relation you have with any of your stepfather's kids. But those kids would just be called your stepbrother or stepsister. But they wouldn't be able to inherit, because just like the stepfather or stepmother, there's no blood connection between you and them.
Understood.
Does that answer you?
Understood.
Understood.
Keely.
Keely.
I just want to find out, in a situation where you have same-sex parents, so let's say you have two mums and you pass away, you're obviously only biologically related to one of them. So would only the one inherit from you?
Yeah, okay. So just keep in mind, Keely, that you now pass away, all right, and you have a mother and you have a father. Okay? Because surely there must have been a father. Otherwise, how were you born? You know what I mean? Now, the mother goes and let's say is no longer with the father, but the mother goes and marries another lady. So you now have two moms. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, but in a case where it's like a donor, like she was never married to a man before.
Oh, I hear you. Okay. Then remember one thing. You have your mom. Now the second mom of yours. Okay. Did this mom legally adopt you? If the answer is no,
Yeah.
if the answer is no, then you just have your mom, your biological mom that came from the donor. Okay. The other mom has no connection to you. Unless she legally adopted you, then it would be seen as your other parents. Eh?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool.
Kia.
Kia, go for it.
Yes. I want to ask what we should prepare for tomorrow's lecture.
Okay. Ladies and gents, I'm also going to just note this is the last question for tonight. We are running out of time. Every night, I'm going to give you opportunities to ask questions. So maybe tomorrow night or the night thereafter, there's something from lecture 1 that you wanted to ask. You're going to have your chance. Okay. Somewhere you will get your chance. It's impossible that you keep missing out. Okay. So the question was, what do I need to prepare for tomorrow night? Tomorrow night, we're going to be dealing with testate succession. So tonight we dealt with intestate law. Tomorrow night, we're dealing with testate law. So this is now where you die with a valid will. This is not practical, it's purely theoretical. So if you wish to prepare for the lecture tomorrow night, read through testate law. All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Ladies and gents, have a good evening. I'll see you all tomorrow at 5 p.m. Cheers.
Thanks, Carl. Cheers.
Thanks, Kai.